reason why I liked this platform being what it was, because I remember a long time ago, and honestly, God just had to really renew my mind about it. Like, I really feel like I needed a renewed mind in regards to the work that I was creating and like having confidence in myself and my initial reactions, I guess you could say, in regards to certain things. So, I do YouTube every now and then, but I'm not really trying to be a content creator, not because I don't believe that I can. And I'm not doing one of those things where I'm like, I low key want to be a content creator, but then it's like, I kind of don't. When I think about my first interactions with the internet and like how it's how it's been very consistent for me, right? Because I grew up in an era where you used to decorate your pictures with like pixel and like, you know what I mean? Like, it was like this thing where it was all about creativity and just like expression and just putting out really cool things that you found to be interesting. And that was pretty much the end of it. Like, you would literally post, I don't know, like a peanut butter sandwich or something, you know what I mean, on your Instagram page. And it wasn't really this thing. And so I don't think that it's an inability to transition with the times, but I do think for a certain purpose and intention that I, kind of like nurture, I feel like I like what I do. I like the way that I do it. There's just something about my face not being plastered everywhere and feeling like I need to keep up with this sense of like relevancy. And it's so funny. Now that I'm having this moment, I am not going to talk names, and I'm not going to because I want to make something very clear. Whenever I talk about my experiences as a Black woman, or when I talk about culture, I'm never critiquing it from a standpoint of like disregard, you know what I mean? Or I'm never coming at it in a disrespectful way, and I just want to make that very clear, because I do think a lot of times, like, I've seen some content creators where it was just really off. Like, the input was very distasteful. And I do think in this culture today where people don't really know how to sit with something and really develop a level of like cultural analysis to be able to critique it in an effective way, right? People just like completely rip things apart and dispute things with their little awareness, right? And I think one thing too I want to make clear as well, like for anybody who's been streaming, you've been listening, whoever's on the other side of this, understand that I'm just a person. Like I'm just a human. I'm just a person. Like, I don't know everything. I've had my experiences, right? I've got podcast episodes where I probably will be like, okay, yeah, we had a chip on our shoulder in that one. You know what I mean? Like, so please hear me clearly. Like, if you enjoy Renaissance Room, if you enjoy the work that I create, if you enjoy the platform and the insight that I have to share, then that's great. If you can pull something from it, that's great. But I heard an educator say once, chew the meat and spit out the bones. Like, anything that doesn't really resonate with you, if you're like, okay, yeah, she was hurting off that one, or she was, whatever, you know what I mean? Take that and like do well with that. You know what I mean? Because I just think that sometimes people, if you've been listening to someone for a while, you can kind of get to a place where you will actually start to take everything they say as like Bible. And it's like, no, I'm not that perfect. You know what I mean? Like, I'm still growing, I'm still learning. And I think one thing that is really unfortunate about having a platform, for some people, it's like you get to this place where you actually stop taking a look at yourself, because it becomes about consistency. It becomes about jumping on a trend of a thing. It becomes about getting, in journalism, right? And for a lot of cultural analysts, and for a lot of people who do like video essays and so forth, just the work of news and media or whatever, it always is about following up on the newest leading story, so you have to be like very timely in your response, or whatever it is. And so I think for a lot of people, if you've made a living off of creating certain things, right, or having a certain platform, sometimes the common sense, the ingenuity is surpassed by your desire to, or at this point it's not even desires, like you got to pay the bills, you have to be consistent with the content. Like, I remember watching feminists, right, like certain feminists come out, create this content, and this isn't to get into feminists, because that's not the premise, but it's like watching certain feminists like come out and they're like really hard pressed into like feminism, and like and then it's like they turn around and they like get boyfriends, and then it's like you kind of have to be like, well, you know what I mean? Like, there's like a weird question mark, because it's like, wait a minute, I thought you were building this sister pack that just can't be divided, that can't be divided, and now you're like in a relationship, and like you're not going to address that to your audience. Like, you're still trying to hold on to the feminist community that you've created. And I don't think that that's and honestly, I do think in part too, like when we come online, like this is kind of what we open ourselves up to, which really brings me to my overall like podcast episode today. As God continues to work in me, and I was even just thinking about something I was praying for today, because I was online, and what's so crazy, being online and having, consuming content, it can very quickly go from inspiration to overconsumption to comparison to like just defeat. Like, I think it kind of is crazy how within a short period of time, you are able to go through so many different emotions. You know what I mean? Just by engaging with content for like 15 minutes and like looking at certain things. And one, I think it's cool because obviously a picture, tells of 1,000 words. But I think it's also very interesting just how transcendental that is. Like how it's just so crazy to just really become like someone who is just so overly consumed. But like, you know what I mean? Like, I just think that's so crazy. Anyway, so the prayer was interesting. And when I stepped back, I realized like it's so crazy how, when you get into this space of comparison, like when we find ourselves there inevitably, you'll really start to realize like, wow, this is really like a smack in the face to God. Like, because you just realize like everything God is doing in your life, and it's so real and it's so authentic, and I think that's just so powerful. It's so powerful. And it's like, even when I start to feel like, oh, I'm not where I want to be, I just didn't think about where I am. And it's everywhere I need to be. And one thing I've learned today as well in my kind of like doom scrolling, I've learned that there really is something in the journey. I really do believe that your gift is in the journey. I think it's in the people that you meet along the way. I think it's in the things that you learn. I think it's in the strength that is then produced. I think it's in the hard times and the endurance and the resiliency that you build. I really don't think that there's actually much joy in like riches. I'm going to be honest. I really don't think that those things will ever really bring you a sense of joy. Like, I don't think it'll ever come from those things. And, you have to realize too, like I was looking at certain things. You talk about peer pressure, right? Because everyone's like, oh, get away from all of your friends, right? Like, come and be rich, whatever. And, you realize that it just is because it's more of the same. I think a lot of people kind of have this idea that, oh, if I start hanging around people who are also successful, the human tendencies, right? The insecurities, the envy, the jealousy, all of that's going to go away. And these successful people, quote unquote, are just going to want the best for me. And it's like the biggest lie. You know what I mean? It's like literally the biggest lie that is absolutely not true. And so it's so crazy how, for some people, they perpetuate this narrative of like cutting off all your friends, cut off all your family in order to be successful. But you find that like a lot of people who kind of possess this mentality, and this is what I was saying too in the beginning of this podcast episode, like the importance of listening with like a discerning ear and like a discerning spirit. Like, you have to understand, people come from different walks. People come from different walks of life. And I think one of the things that is probably most unfortunate about the internet is that you are interacting with people you would never speak to in your real life. You know what I mean? Like people you would never probably give your ear to if you've seen them in person, how they were really living. Like, you would never listen to this person, but it's like if they're online and they got the right angles and it's the glitz and the glam, like you're giving them all full throttle, But yeah, I had a revelatory moment because I started asking myself, like, every insecurity, right? And I'm gonna say this too for my ladies, if you were to be like, okay, I know that we don't like to talk about this because we like to sweep it under the rug, but we're going to be bringing it up into the light today. If you were to be like, okay, if I had this body, right? If I had this type of body, what exactly do you think is going to change? And you have to ask yourself this, like being honest, like, what is this going to do for me? What is this going to bring into my life that I don't currently have? You know what I mean? And I thought that was like very revelatory. And then I think you also have to ask yourself as well, like, okay, if I had the money now, would it help me? Of course, of course it would help you. But it's like, you have to really sit and ask yourself, what difference do I think this would make in my life? What difference would it make in my life? Like, and I actually said this too. It's so crazy. I said this in a previous podcast episode, like a long time ago, like 200 episodes ago. I said, what would you do? Like, it's, why it's not going to change anything? This is what I was saying. So I was saying, if you had the money now, what difference would it make? And the point that I was making, and I'm going to reiterate, is like, you are still the same person. Those voids that you are, longing to be filled, that low self-esteem, those insecurities, it's all still going to be there. Like, that's not going to change anything. If anything, it's going to be more magnified because now you're around people who are doing nothing but pulling that out of you. And let me touch on that too, because I do think when people talk about like rich people, it's always in this very negative way. And that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying having money is bad. I'm not saying being rich is, going to come with more insecurities. But what I am saying is that when you operate from the spirit of it is not enough, when you operate from deprivation, you're only going to go from deprivation to deprivation versus when you operate in the spirit, you're going to go from glory to glory. Okay, that's a word. That's a word that needs to be put on a t-shirt. Okay, seriously, like you're going to go from deprivation to deprivation. It's never going to be enough. It's like if you are someone who struggles with like, you struggle with, like sexual intimacy, right? Like you're going to go from one person to the other, and that's never going to be filled. You're never going to be able to feel that because it's something that is inside of you. And I do think that the money kind of magnetizes it because I think there's something that comes with having money and power. And I think obviously, ultimately it's influence, but I also think too, there's something about access. And I say this all the time. There's something about access that really corrodes the human spirit. I don't think that we were ever intended to have like everything we've ever wanted. You know what I mean? Like, I think that there's something about life, and I think there's something about anticipation. And this is what I was saying too about like the journey being worth it. Like that's the journey. Like the journey is the thing that's going to really bring you the greatest joy. Like it's never going to be the actual thing because you realize it's just things. And I don't think there's anything wrong with like having a dream. I don't think there's anything wrong with having like anticipation. But I do think when you get everything that you've ever wanted, especially like all at once, or when you just get everything that you ever wanted, like there's a sense of emptiness, and you almost get to a point where you find it to be a curse because you can't seem to get rid of it. No matter how much you spend, no matter how much you buy, no matter how many women, no matter how many men, you can't seem to get rid of the access that you've created for yourself, which is kind of like put you in this trance almost of like, I can get anything that I want. Like there's no restriction. And I don't think that humans were ever really meant to live with like no bounds. Now, of course, to the carnal ear, let me not say to the carnal ear, you're going to have your own opinions, right? But I do think for anybody listening, it's easy to be like, oh, you just put bounds on yourself. I think for me, I don't think I put bounds on myself, but I do believe that I am very blessed to have learned from other people. I'm not the kind of person who's like, I want to go see for myself, like that's not really me. Like, I think I'm the kind of person to where it's like, I love learning from others. I'll learn from anybody, and I'm not saying that, like I said, I think to kind of conclude and, what I'm saying is like, basically I'm saying money is bad, then I think that you're not listening. Like you're not really hearing what I'm saying. But honestly, I'm really hoping that I don't have any listeners like that on the other end here. For me, you guys, it has been such a day, right? Being someone who is a writer, being someone who loves literature, being someone who, enjoys philosophy, it's been really hard, honestly. Like, I know we're kind of taking like a sidebar here, but it's been really hard today, like starting out with this work and wanting to be a journalist and all these different things. Like, I love theory. I love intellect, but it's becoming really challenging today. I don't think that the space is necessarily overcrowded, but I do think that our low barriers to entry have made a lot of things a lot less enjoying. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I do think that our low barriers to entry have made things a lot less enjoying. Like there was something about, this is just traditionally, but like, going to college and becoming a doctor versus like, you know what I mean? Like just starting up an Instagram and being like, I'm a doctor, or, there was something about like being immersed in certain industries and actually working in those industries and then coming out and starting a business. But now it's just like people are just like so like, and I think that because you've lowered the barriers to entry, it's like everyone can get in. And of course, you may listen to that and you may be like, oh, so do you think that, it's scarcity? I don't think it's scarcity, but I do think there's something about cutting the line. And I think for a lot of people today, especially, it's so easy to cut the line, right? Like you think about fashion, for example. Fashion is what you make it, well, technically fashion is really just like fast fashion, right? It's anything that's trending, that's really fashion, because that's what makes it fashionable. But when you talk about style, right, you start talking about fashion, you start talking about, I said fashion, but you get what I'm saying. But you start talking about garments, and you start talking about personality and expression and the uniqueness and the beauty and the originality that is style, and you start looking at how it's so easy to go to somebody else's Instagram page today and like jack that, it's so easy to, replicate a look. It's so like, you know what I mean? And I just think that there was a beautiful time where originality and authenticity was it. And to be honest, this is always my 2 cents. I really do feel like relationships struggle today. This podcast episodes are over the place, but we're just chatting at this point. Like, we're just vibing, we're just chatting. But I do think relationships struggle so much today, not because of all the access. I actually think it's because of the lack of originality. Like, it's really hard to be content and settled in a relationship with a person when it's like this person has completely replicated somebody else's style, personality, and so forth, right? It's hard because it's like, are you really, who you say you are? Or, you know what I mean? Like, you don't really know. And I think that for a lot of people, it's like you break up because it's like you have a lot of people who really just are followers. And I think you're never really going to get what's for you until you actually show up and be yourself. And I think that's hard. I think that's really hard today because you have to realize like the complexities of who you are. Like, you think about the things that make you, those things oftentimes don't really make you popular. You know what I mean? Like, those things don't really actually, like, you know what I mean? They're the quirky, little weird, little unique things about you that just make you you. And it's like, that's just you. But I think when you throw all of that away to be like, you know what, I'm about to get on this trend, I'm about to make more money, because we know that like similarity is definitely the thing that brings, a nice chunk of change. If it's relevant, then that's what's up, So I don't know. I think that's a very interesting thing. And then I think you start talking about like a platform. I think what people don't really realize about like platforms is you kind of have to ask yourself, how much am I willing to give up? What am I willing to kind of transform into? And is that something I can live with? I think for me, I do want certain things in my life, but I realize that I have a lot of life to live. I realize that this is just the start of the journey. Like, what's the rush? I just was looking at this is another thing too. I follow a lot of women who inspire me, like women who are very authentic. But I was just looking at a content creator. She's like, I started at 44, and that's her journey. But I just think about like how much life there is. You know what I mean? Like, why does it all have to get done today? Why does it all have to get done right now? And it's like, when you realize, loving yourself and being patient with yourself and trusting God and God's timing for your life, you realize like, okay, let me give myself time to build these skills. And I think a lot of times it can kind of feel a bit, ancient in a sense, because it's like, we don't really have to build skill. We don't really have to use our physical bodies. We don't really have to, you know what I mean? We don't really have to train for this. We can just kind of get online, put some things together, like, and it can be very simple. But I don't know. I just think that like, for myself, I knew that I was growing and changing so much. And I heard someone say this once, which I thought was so revelatory. It's like, how is Gen Z navigating the complexities of figuring out who you are while building a brand? Because people are going to typecast you. Like, that's just the thing. Like, there's something about being typecasted, and that's just the realism, right? Like I said, you come out, you say you're a feminist. That's what the content is going to be. If you wake up and decide, you know what, I don't want to lead this crusade anymore. I actually want to be someone who, brings Black people and Black men and women together, and how do you pivot from that when you've garnered an entire audience of people who, you know what I mean? And so I think for a lot of people, that's a very slippery slope, because honestly, it starts to feel dishonest. But the realism is that you're growing and you're changing. So I think there's something about allowing yourself to be in the slow cooker. I think there's something about allowing yourself to really grow and develop and figure out who you are and what really makes you happy, because you do change a lot, especially in your 20s. Like, this is really just the beginning. I mean, I can't even only imagine. I mean, even 30 years is a short life. You know what I mean? Like, you have to realize, like, you were a child for 10 of those years, 20 years. That's not really a lot of time to, really learn and perfect or, become an expert at anything, quite frankly. And so I don't know. I think sometimes it's okay to just kind of like slow things down. I think sometimes it's okay to just kind of like take your time and sit back and kind of just like watch culture and observe culture and listen to the Renaissance Room, where we document culture. And, figure out like, what is this thing going to be, because the thing about trends and like jumping on the wave, you have to realize that like eventually the tides are going to turn. The tides are going to turn, and like what's hot today is not going to be hot tomorrow. And when you've completely altered your entire life, you cut off all your day ones, you cut off all your friends, and I'm not talking about toxic relationships. And to be honest, to sidebar on relationships here, because I actually kind of want to touch on this thing about like cutting off your day ones. I've never really had a friend who was never meant to be a friend who stayed in my life. Like I really believe God and like God's plans for you. Like there's people in my life who I felt like could have been a day one. These people, I felt like they were the most encouraging of me. I felt like they were, and they're not here today. So I just think that like you have to learn to be appreciative of people in your life. And like you got to learn to look up to, because I think when we're in our 20s, we're like tunnel vision, we're working hard. Sometimes you have to learn to look up. Like what matters in life is not this success. This is not it. You know what I mean? Like we're doing this, we're working through this, like we're toiling, you know what I mean? This is fun. We get some wins. Like it's going to be dope. We're going to celebrate. We're going to have a good time. You guys know I said 2024, it's giving work hard, but play harder, but it's like at the end of the day, look up. Like what really matters. And I do think that's another reason why relationships are really struggling today, because people don't know how to just look up and realize like, okay, life is more than this. You know what I mean? Like it's more than this little petty, like this is stupid. You know what I mean? Like it's not that deep. Like this doesn't define you or me. Like, like it's bigger than that. So I think you have to definitely have you have to be grounded, I think spiritually, because I think you'll get swept up in that. But yeah, so as far as like friends, I don't know. I think for me, do I think there's been some people who've had influence on my life? I don't know. Because to be honest, I'm always kind of been someone who's always been willing to like step back, retreat, retract. I journal a lot. I'm very connected to myself. So I don't necessarily know if people are influencing me. I don't think so. Like, I think I'm pretty good off that. I know me. I think there are some people who can't give me, the things that I may want. But one thing I realized about people, if you're looking for people who are not insecure, if you're looking for people who are going to meet your every need and who are going to be at your every beck and call, who's going to check it, I don't know if you're going to find them. Like, I think because we have so much access, we've actually created delusions in terms of like humanistic tendencies and human interaction. And I think that's why we're also struggling relationally, because it's like, you're really thinking you're about to find people who are going to worship the ground you walk on. You're crazy, And like, why is that such a bad thing for you why is that such a bad thing? Why are you interpreting that as you're gonna get the opposite, right? It's like this dichotomous thinking, like either this or that, either this shirt or that shirt. Like that's not really life, like what matters to you, And so I don't know. I think it's true. I do think that in a sense we are really looking for fans. And like I said, in regards to the people in my life, I mean, you got to learn boundaries. I think it's just kind of like when you start dealing with people, if I'm not kidding. If you are looking for people who are never insecure, if you're looking for people who always say the right thing, always do the right thing, one, you're going to find yourself dealing with some crazy people, because people like that are very inauthentic. But I think you might as well go ahead and climb on that hill and be prepared to die on it, because you're never going to find them. Like once I turned 26, I had an aha moment, and I realized I'm never in my life going to meet people who hit every check on the box. You know what I mean? Like, you're just not. Like, do I think there are some people who are your people? Yes. Do I think you should be around people who respect you? Yeah. But I just think like people have their own stuff. It's not really about you. Like, it's not even anything personal. And I don't know. I think you really do have to be so built up in who you are and who God created you to be, to where you really don't need that validation for other people. Like, do we have moments where we get low? Yes. But I think as you get older, you actually learn to kind of, you're a little bit more resilient in that, and you bounce back to where you don't need people so much to help you get through certain things, because you realize like, okay, God has brought me this far, like I'm gonna be okay. So I don't know, maybe that's just my journey, and I guess I'll kind of just like pause to kind of share that. Yeah, I feel like I used to be someone who was like really dependent on other people, like, to encourage me, to lift me up. Like I was someone who was like, oh, they didn't say that. That's why I can teach from this. But I'm like, oh, they didn't say that. They didn't do that. They didn't like my pick. They didn't da-da-da-da-da. They didn't support my business. Like my attitude was that. And it really only shortchanged me, because I realized that I love these people. You know what I mean? And what I'm asking for is a little ridiculous. When you start looking at the complexities of a person, like, and then the type of person that I am, being an avid reader, I listen to just about everything. I watch like I'm so, you know what I mean? that's a lot. You know what I mean? That's a lot of learning. That's a lot of awareness that a lot of people don't have. And that's not to really create a sense of superiority, but it is to create a sense of realism. You know what I mean? Nobody's sitting at home reading books. Nobody, you know what I mean? That's not a thing. Like, most commonly. So it's just like, I don't know. It's just like, I'm not expecting other people to be in that space. If it happens, then it's great. But I just think as far as like the people that you love, you can't change them, and you should just like love them and just keep your head above the water, because that's just what it is. I mean, as long as no one's like mistreating you, nobody's disrespecting you, nobody's abusing you, cool. But I think as far as like certain things, I don't know. I just think you just leave yourself in a vulnerable position when you leave the people that you love, because you're really chasing, like what you're chasing is smoke and mirrors. Like you leave them in hopes to like find something better, but then you usually end up finding something worse. Like you usually actually end up finding something worse. But I don't know. I think this conversation does require a lot of nuance. And I feel like I find myself going back and forth to kind of thoroughly explain this, because I think a lot of times people think that it's like, oh, I'm saying you're never going to meet your people. That's not at all what I'm saying. But from myself, I just realized that, enjoy people in passing. And like, I don't know, I don't want to say, like I'm not this person who's like hipster, like enjoy people in passing, whether, that's not what I'm saying, but I don't know. I don't know. I just think like when I think about people, it's like people can only meet you where they are. And I just think that if you want a little bit more freedom, if you want a little bit more happiness, if you want your heart to be overfilled with joy, then you should just kind of like lessen the expectations for people a little bit, because, they're probably not going to meet those. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's just very rare. And so I think you should definitely work on being happy with yourself. And like when you find yourself needing boundaries from certain people, just don't deal with them. Of course, you should have, certain non-negotiables and like deal breakers. Is this podcast episode called Dealing with People? Because I don't know. But because I think with strangers, it's like you got to take people for face value. You don't know them. So you can't be on this tip of like, you can't be spiritual with it. You got to be like, okay, yeah, I saw what I saw. I seen everything I needed to see. And you have to kind of like chuck the deuce. But it's like when it's the people that you know and the people that you love, I mean, I don't know. I just think it's like if you really live your life like that, you're going to always be offended. And I don't know. I mean, you have to ask yourself, what is this doing to me? What is this unforgiveness doing to me? Because I think that that's the thing. And I know for myself, it's like bitterness it can really corrode your life, and it's just very heavy. Like it's a very heavy thing to carry. And like bitterness is something that it's like a seed in your spirit, and so it kind of just starts to spread up all these different weeds, and you can't really see things clearly, and it just being bitter is just not a vibe. So like you just have to just realize that like people are gonna people, and you set your boundaries. Maybe don't share certain things with people who don't really have the capacity to celebrate you. But I'm going to be honest. I do think the moment that you get tight with God, you're going to be able to have a lot more fun with people. I'm not going to lie. You're going to be able to have you're going to be able to really go out and enjoy yourself and have a good time, because you're not going to be so focused on what am I getting from the interaction? What is this person giving to me? Because you're so full and you're so whole within yourself that like, whether this person does anything or not, I didn't even pay attention because I was so busy enjoying the experience. I was so busy enjoying the dinner. I was so busy, you know what I mean? I was so busy doing that. And like, and obviously this is more so for the friend tip. I think relationally, you should probably consider your needs. But like, I don't know. I think you have to really take the time to get to know a person. Like, I don't even like, you could be like, oh, I have all these needs, but like, I don't know, like why that's like a very, I just don't think that's something that you talk about with like, especially if you're someone you're dating. Like, I don't really know how you would have that conversation up front. Like, I think that that's very inauthentic. And I don't know, one thing I've learned, I was listening to this podcast and it was talking about like the levels of intimacy and like depth in terms of like conversation. And I think she was saying like level 1 was like, surface level things, level 2 was like sharing ideas and opinions. Level 3 was like talking about your traumas and things you've been through, your childhood experiences. And then she said level 4 was talking about your dreams. I thought that was huge, because I think too often people are a little too hard pressed. And I do think it's because I don't know. I just think it's like, you just have like, it's just the unrealistic, like, you know, like when you don't know how this is supposed to go, you're just a little too heavy and it's just not that deep. And it's okay. Cause I used to be that way. I used to be someone who was just like very much like, I'm going to figure this out right now. And it just really don't got to be that way. Like, it's chill. I think if you can't hit it with the level 1 with somebody, like you guys are not into the same things, we're not cracking jokes, you know, it's not a vibe, then that's pretty much how you know you probably shouldn't take it to level 4. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, they probably are going to be dead silent or jealous in regards to your dreams. You know what I mean? Like, you guys probably aren't going to hit it off because it's like you didn't even hit it off on level 1. So, you know, but you never think about that, right? So I thought that was really cool. I'm happy I actually remembered that, to be able to recite it and be like, yes, there are levels of intimacy in regards to conversation. Like, just chill, you know? So I don't know. Yeah, I think I'm all talked out. This was a very interesting podcast episode. We've shifted from a lot of different spaces, but yeah, so all in all, you know, I think that you are going to get what you pray for. You know, I think it'll actually be better than anything you will ever imagine. And, you know, you being someone who kind of takes your foot up off the gas a little bit, you being someone who's very content and very appreciative of where you are in your life, you being someone who's, you know, making the daily effort to, put forward the effort in regards to your goals, you know, you loving the ones who love you, you loving the ones who, you know, have been there for you. I think you're on the right path. You know, I think you're doing pretty good, to be honest. Like I said, I don't know. I think that there's something about just being alive and being a human and like, you know, having goals and doing things and learning. For me, I'm just innately curious. So I think I think curiosity is probably one of the things that has led to my success and will ultimately lead to my success, because I just don't think that it was ever really a matter of like the aha for me. I think it was more so like, can I do that? You know, I think that was always my MO. It was always like, can I do that? Can I build that? Can I say that? Can I create that? Let's just see what it's like if we were to bring this idea into fruition. You know, that was always kind of like my goal. You know, do I love that? Do I like that? Am I proud of that? You know, wow, that looks really dope. That's really fire. This felt so good to kind of like create it. And, you know, people talk about sitting and savoring the moments. I mean, you just got to know what makes you happy. I think for me, I'm more simplistic in that way. Like, I think it's just very subtle things that make me happy. You know, accomplishments is nice, but it's always very fleeting, because I'm just the type of person, I'm always probably looking for the next thing. And it's not because I'm unappreciative. It's just because I created it out of mere curiosity. And I'm actually curious to see what else I can do, you know? So, but I don't know. I just realized that like, it doesn't make me happy, because I've just had so many moments in my life where I've reached a goal and I'm still like, okay, cool. That's what's up, you know? And I don't think I don't think it really gives, you know, psychological, or I need to look within that. I think everybody's different. And, you know, to sidebar here, I think you have to also stop letting people tell you who you are and like what you know what I mean? Like, oh, it's giving, you need to celebrate yourself. Like, trust me, we do a lot of celebrating. We probably should stop celebrating, because quite frankly, we're always celebrating. Like, I'm always getting what you know what I mean? What I'm wanting. And it's just like, that's the problem. Like, we all could use a little bit of restraint. So it doesn't give that. I don't feel deprived of acknowledgement, but I do think that, you know, sometimes people will, you know, look at that, they'll hear that and they'll think, oh, if you haven't celebrated it outwardly, you know, if you haven't posted it, if you haven't, then it's like you didn't really acknowledge yourself and you have low self-esteem. Like, it just really doesn't give that, you know, it just never gave that. It just gives like, I don't know, like those things don't really bring me like it's cool. You know, it's great. It's great to see. You know, I'm glad that other people were able to enjoy what I've created, and it, you know, it found itself in the right space. But I don't know. I just feel like I'm in touch with like something deeper. You know, like I just feel like God knows. Like I just feel like for me, it's really like the little things. You know, and I don't know. I just, like I said, you know, I think when you're spiritually connected, you have a really nice balance. You know, where you can really like keep your head above the water and you're like, okay, you know what I mean? Like, I did that. That was great. You know, that was cool. That was a better turnout, or, you know, and I think when I think back, like, have I sabotaged anything? I don't think so. I think if anything, I've been protected, you know, like I really do, because I think that I've had, you know, certain ideas about certain things like other people. And I also kind of had this sense of naivete, like childlike wonder, which I'm very grateful that, you know, looking back, I feel like I'm very grateful that certain things didn't happen in my life, because I wasn't really ready. I don't feel like I was the woman that I am today, inevitably. But I just feel like I have a lot more handle on like myself and, sticking up for myself and, just things like that I feel like you need when you're in certain industries or when you're dealing with people in general. You know what I mean? And I just think that like when you're young and you're impressionable, you don't really have that. So that's why I'm not really, I can't say that I have any regrets. I do think there was a moment in time where I did feel that way, but I think it's just easy to kind of be someone who's like a little nostalgic. And when you are sad, it's easy to fall back into that mentality of like, oh man, I wish I would have, but it's like, it's a waste of time because it's never going to happen. So it's like, you just have to press forward. And, the thing about like success and all of it, it's like it's so easy to forget, it's so easy to forget. So if you find yourself and you relate to that, you have to ask yourself, okay, what really makes me happy? And like, always keep your values, at the forefront of your life. Like always keep your priorities at the forefront of your life. Always keep your values at the forefront of your life and operate out of that space, and enjoy it, enjoy your success, enjoy the fruits of your labor. But like, I think that'll keep you grounded. Yeah. And people say, getting big headed. I don't know. I'm just not really a bragger. Like, I'm just, I don't really feel like for me, that's just not my personality, and I don't judge people who do. I feel like there are some people who are a little bit more, flamboyant and like braggadocious, but that's just not your girl, and I don't feel like by not bragging, I'm missing out on anything, I just don't, it feels very inauthentic to me. Like but I don't judge people who are, who flex it up. You do you, whatever you got to do to, but for me, I don't feel that way. I'm more like intimate, you know what I mean? Celebrate with the people that I love, the people that I care about, the people who were actually with me while I was working on the thing, the people who, supported me while I was in the midst of like my toil and working on the thing. I feel like that's more meaningful to me than like doing like a big thing where I'm like, okay, everybody see me, look at what I did, that's just not me. And I'm not really someone who really likes a lot of attention either. I'm just, but at this point it's giving personal diary. So I'm going to end the podcast here, but yes, be careful what you pray for. And you have to really assess your heart. Like, why am I praying for this? Do I even really want this? Like, do I even really want to be working like that? Do I even really want to da-da-da-da-da like that? Do I really want to give up the sacrifices like that? Is that really going to make me happy? I don't know. I just think there's something so freeing and surrendering. Like, I really used to feel like, and you guys listen, I can only teach from this because I feel like I was that person. I was all the things that I'm telling you because this is the testimony. Like, I was really someone who was just like, this is going to make me happy. Like, this is Like, I just feel like I was really that person. I was really that person. Like, for real. And when I access that happiness today, I'm like, oh God, you are so good. And I think being someone who was tunnel vision, and it almost led me to a really scary place, because I just felt like I was so tunnel vision. Now that I've like given my life to Christ and I'm just like walking with God and I'm just trusting God's plan for me, and I'm like, okay, let's just see what's next. Oh my God. It's like everything that I have been looking for is like, is here. It's like, I feel like by letting go of certain ideals, by letting go of certain things and trusting God and just being open, it has freed up so much of my heart to where I can really experience the things that really matter to me. Like, I can really have joy and love and happiness and peace in my own life. I just feel like it's really hard to, when your heart is set on so many other things, like you're just consumed with so many other things. I feel like it's really hard to really have peace. It's really hard to have like joy in your heart because it's like you're just so consumed with other things. But yes, I feel like trusting God, because He knows you. Like, He knows how much you can take. He knows what's really gonna, set it off for you, and He really knows you. And I also think too, because I'm someone who kind of likes a lot of novelty, I just think it's great because it's like you have this sense of excitement. You have this sense of like anticipation that I was talking to you guys about, like, what is going to happen next. Like, I'm so excited to see what God does next in my life, because you're already like really doing it up. You're really doing your big one right now. So it's like, I'm really excited to just see like what's next. Like, I'm happy, like it just gives that. And I think for me, it's all about, what you really want for yourself. And you don't really know, because I think it's a lot of times we'll be like, oh, this is going to make me happy. Like, for example, I was like, I am going to pursue X. And when I get up and ask, girl, when I tell you it was not giving anything like I thought it was going to give, I said, this is not for me. What do you mean? I can't say what? I can't talk about what? I can't write about what? You want me to write like what? You want me to say what? You want me to write that like what? I'm not taking it. That's how I wrote it. You know what I mean? That's how I wrote it. You want me to edit it like what? You know? And it's like, you be thinking like, okay, once I get to this thing, I'm going to be validated. And not only do you find yourself salty, like, and this is kind of why I did use the episode where I talked about the media. I gave that an example of like, you know, people competing for the same spot, because you realize that you're never going to get the validation that you really like. Not only have you gave your life to this career, like, or your life to really this career, right? You've given up friendships, you've given up so much, and it's like, they won't even give you a award plaque. They won't even call your name at the award show. Like, are you kidding me? Like, that you've given up everything to be here. And you start talking about like relevancy and how when you give up something and it kind of like becomes you can't really divorce from it. So now it's like, you have to jump on the wave. You have to jump on the, you know, and it's like what started as, you know, doing something that you love has now been like tainted into this Olympic, and that's exhausting. And I think that's just, but I don't know, you know, I'm not going to get too much into that, because I just think, you know, everybody's life is different. People's life path is different. You know, we don't really know if that person feels that way. You know, some people don't feel that way. Some people have a completely different, you know, stance. And I think I respect that. But all in all I can say is, as, you know, as a recovering ambitiaholic, I can honestly say like there is really something so freeing and like letting go of that, because it's really ghetto. It's real ghetto. You be thinking that is one thing. You get up in there and you be like, oh my God, how did I tie my life up like this? I'm in this thing, and this thing is so like, this is so trash. This is so whack. Like, it doesn't give anything like that. But to the world, and to mostly like strangers, right? People are looking at you like, oh, you got it made. Like, you got it made. So I don't know. I'm going to end this by, you know, just kind of encouraging anybody who struggles with like comparison, you know, realize that God has something for you that is specifically for you. And in order for you to get that thing, you're going to have to be yourself. You're going to have to be yourself. You're going to have to be 100% authentic. And it's probably not, or it may not bring a platform. Reason being is because you're unique, right? You're unique. Everybody's not going to vibe with that. It's not popular. It's not a hot commodity. Okay. You're very unique. It's giving one of one. So a lot of people aren't really going to gravitate towards that. Now, that's not to say that you can't have a platform by being authentic. Like, I would, you know, if that's what you want, again, if that's what you want. Now, I just gave this whole podcast episode talking about purpose and happiness and individualism to the extent of, you know, your uniqueness. So please don't let this be lost on you. But you know, when you realize that, then you're gonna be a lot happy, because it's like, you got to keep you know, you got to keep the things that make you. Like, and are we growing? Are we changing? Are we becoming more of ourselves? Absolutely. But like, at its core, you didn't have to completely flip the script and put the thing down and flip it and reverse it. You didn't have to do that. You just had to be yourself, and like, you got everything that was for you. And regardless if that doesn't bring fame, regardless if that doesn't bring, you know what I mean, like a large audience, or, you know, mass appeal and applaud and validation from so many people, you're sturdy. You know what I mean? Like, you know, if they come today, if it burns down today, you're sturdy. Like, and I just feel like that's something you should never give up. Like, don't ever give up your authenticity. Be you, because I think that's the thing that's really going to make you happy. And I think that's like the best advice. This is giving advice podcast. I don't know what it's giving. Is it giving big sis? What is it giving? I don't know. But yeah, I think you know, so I think I'm going to end there. Yeah, this was a great podcast episode, actually. You know, what was this about? Like, authenticity? What was it about? It was kind of giving that. You know, it was giving authenticity. It was giving, you know, asking yourself questions about the things that you desire, right? The things that you want in your life that you don't currently have, that are making you miserable because you believe that they, you know, carry your happiness, right? Yeah, you should really ask yourself those things. Like, okay, what is really gonna do it for me, you know? And don't despise the day of small beginnings. You know, if you're in your 20s and you're listening to this, you are so young. Like, you literally have so much life to live. There's so many things you can do. Like, 40 is actually pretty young. I'm not saying like you should wait till 40. You should probably start now. But like 40 is like, that's pretty young, you know. And then there's just something about greater responsibility, whether that's influence, if God does want to give you a platform, if you do want a platform, and, you know, being able to be yourself, and you're not, you know, tap dancing for other people, because, you know, you're good on you, and, you know, take it or leave it. And I think that that's the type of attitude you want. Like, you want that type of like, take it or leave it, you know, versus like, let me mold and conform, and then you're telling your story years later, and, you know, it's like a journalist like me, you know, is listening, but like they don't hear you. You know, don't go out that way. Be sturdy, face your challenges, because you have the grace for them. So, okay, that's the end of the pep talk. Peace.